What the Tech is sponsored by Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of audiobooks, with more than 100,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature. For a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/Andrew. And by Stitcher Radio. Listen on the go via the Stitcher mobile app. For more information, go to Stitcher.com/GFQ. Welcome everybody to another amazing episode of What the Tech. That's how I'm just gonna start it out.
Wow, that's a quite a promise up front.
It's gonna be amazing.
Why don't we see how it goes?
I'm already making my my decision on how the show's gonna go before we even start.
Yeah, really?
I'm Andrew Zarian, and returning to the good old US of A is Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Okay, I'll try not to spontaneously pass out during the show.
Are you excited to be back home?
Yeah, sure. It was good.
Well,
it was a good trip. So I mean,
you were gone for 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah. The first year we ever did a home swap, we went for 3 weeks and it went really well. And so the next year, my goal, if I could, I would spend the entire summer in Europe. So the next summer, I said, "Why don't we do 4 weeks this year?" And 4 weeks was clearly too long. My kids were freaking out. They were gone from their friends for too long, and they were getting on each other's nerves and everything. So we always do 3 weeks now. But this was another one of those trips. Like, it just went so great. That my kids were great. They're great travelers, but they're good people too. They don't, claw at each other and stuff. And they were just they were great. So
no one's having too many chicken nuggets and just vomiting.
There was not a single chicken nugget consumed on the entire trip.
I can't ever go back to Sizzlers after that episode when I was 9.
Yeah,
that really happened to me.
Really?
Yeah, I'm scarred for life.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Scarred. No, I'm glad you're back. We had, there were little internet hiccups here and there since you were in the middle of nowhere, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's amazing, and I got a lot of emails about this. It's amazing how, even though it wasn't the most ideal situation to broadcast, you could still do it.
I know. And this is the thing, I don't know what's going to happen to me in life. I could drop dead tomorrow, get hit by a bus or something, but for years now, my wife and I have talked about this notion of, splitting up our time between here and some other place, wherever that might be. I mean, both of us work at home and we're writers, and the only reason we can't do it now is because we have kids in school, and that would be just the wrong thing to do to kids, obviously. So, but we talk about it, we think about it, and every time we go away, this stuff just gets better and better. And I remember the first year we went out to Europe when the iPhone had come out, which was, I think, our second trip out there for the summer. That thing was on like an edge network. There was no anything. I mean, you couldn't buy an international plan of any kind. That was the summer when people were remember they would get like a foot of bills, paper bills, or people were going to Europe and getting $13,000 bills and all that stuff. And to compare that time period, which was 5 years ago or so, with the way things are now, how sophisticated it is, I can from the phone, go to an AT&T app, say, I would like to buy, international data plan of X size. I would like to buy international texting plan, international calling plan. Enable that stuff. I have live tracking of how I'm doing with all that stuff while I'm there. And when I get home, I can turn it off, all from the phone. I don't have to call AT&T. I don't have to do any weirdness. It's amazing. And
you know what it was? And I always said this. I feel like the technology was always there, but it didn't know how humans behave.
Yeah.
So it had to kind of be catered towards the way that we behave and the things that we like. But a lot of the technology is still the same from 3-4 years ago. Skype is pretty much handling the video the same exact way that it was. But it's just amazing that you could be somewhere in wine country in France, and we have zero latency issues. I mean, we're able to have this coherent discussion with video.
If I had been it's weird. Like, it's hard to describe where I was. It was a very rural area, but the homes that were on the street I was on are very modern, new IKEA-looking homes. But if you were to go right around the corner, it was all stone farmhouses. You know those classic pictures of France in World War II where there's there's been an ad that was painted on the side of a stone building and it's kind of faded.
Yeah.
There was that on the walls of stone farmhouses were these ads. One of them had an ad for a cafe on it that clearly was like 80 years old or something. I guarantee you that the people who lived in those homes, some of which were very renovated, you could see walking by during the day when the windows open, that the insides were completely modern and beautiful, that they had a better connection than I had, simply because of the distance to that. I don't know, I'm using the wrong term, but it's like an ADSL repeater or whatever. They were because they were closer to the main street, and I bet they were closer on that line of bandwidth that comes out from the street.
What kind of connection was it?
Better. It was an ADSL, 5 megabits down and 1 megabit up. But because we were so far down the line and literally not quite a cul-de-sac, but basically a dead-end street, or as Stephen Wright would have described it jokingly, a one-way dead-end street. We were the last house on this string of houses. Like there were no houses beyond us. So our connection was as weak as it could be. We were way out in the hinterland, for this line. 200 kilobits was the up speed.
Wow. We were. And we were able to pull it off.
But we pulled it off, yeah. And I think anywhere else in this town, it would have been better. So it actually could have been even better, even where we were. With just moving a couple hundred feet up the street, I think would have made a difference.
I was in Aruba a couple of years ago. My wife and I went on a delayed honeymoon because we never made it on our honeymoon. I got sick, she got sick, the cat got sick. So we decided we're going to totally...
The cat got sick?
The cat got sick and we couldn't go. It was a whole thing. Wow. So we went 2 years after we got married, and the hotel, the resort that we were in, had 50 by 50 upload and download megabits.
That's crazy.
As its internet dedicated to every room. And I was thinking, I'm like, you know what? This is insane that
I could live here.
I'm like, I'm in Aruba. I'm not in the US or Canada. I don't think Aruba's really known for anything other than tourism.
Yep.
And they have better internet. And by the way, they had Wi-Fi for the entire island, and you were getting at least 5 to 10 megabits with the Wi-Fi.
So you could probably explain that, because Aruba is a small place, right?
Very small.
It would be easy to bring broadband to a small place, right? I think part of the problem where we live, both of us, you and I, is that it is thickly settled. If you fly over New York or my area, I mean, there are trees, but the houses are jammed in there. It's one of the reasons that, if you're Fios or Comcast or whatever, you look at an apartment complex, especially a huge one, and you're like, I don't want any part of this. Because, wiring those places is awful. It's like the sheer greatest number of people you can have in a single given space. So, it's weird. I think this is the worst parts. The worst places to get good bandwidth are probably both the most rural and the most densely populated places, right? Kind of ironically. For that reason, but
oh yeah, if you have a 50 by 100 property where I am, I mean, you're sitting on a great piece of land.
Yeah,
it's good to own land. Sit on your porch and just look, towards the front lawn that you have that your neighbor might not.
Yes, no, but just had your shotgun.
Yeah. But it is an interesting thing, because there was a study that came out this week from the FCC that said 19 million Americans are still without broadband access.
Yeah.
Now, but that's a vague term, of course. What defines broadband is defined as internet access that is over 4 megabits per second.
Yep.
So, but 19 million.
Well,
out of the 360.
I was going to say, that sounds like a big number until you realize they're right. Over 350 million, whatever. So 360 million people living in the United States. So that's less than 1/3 of 20%. So,
I mean, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. But
I don't think so either. In fact, you might make the argument that number represents the people who are never going to have broadband.
Yeah, I mean, one example was that there's an area in West Virginia that's lacking 45% of coverage for its population.
Yep.
So what do you do in those situations? How are you ever going to bring high-speed internet access to those people?
I think that you need to make it a requirement for the companies that do provide broadband that they have to go to those places in order to come to the other places that are more populated around them. This is, you're probably, I think we might have even talked about this, but you're probably familiar with the notion of Verizon and the state of Vermont and the troubles that they've had there, because they had at one point agreed to provide broadband to some area of Vermont and eventually decided, this isn't going to work out for us financially. And they tried to get out of it. They tried to sell part of it to a local company and all this. And I haven't been up to the extreme northern realm of Vermont, like the I think they call it the Northeast Kingdom, in many years now. But 10 years ago when we went up there, we were very used to broadband. Where we lived, and it was dial-up. Up there, and it was so strange going back to dial-up.
Yeah.
And it was a very remote area, very very remote area. And I remember thinking, this is one of those places that may never have broadband here. I mean, it's just so remote.
I don't think they'll ever. There are areas, and I don't think they should necessarily wire all these areas. And in my opinion, they'll never get wired. If they're not wired now, they're never going to get wired. The answer will be some sort of, over the air type, Wi-Fi.
Well, it could be cable. It could be satellite plus dial-up even. I mean, which is historically in the small history we've had of this been the way that really rural areas would get it. Where I think it was the download speed would be great, but the upload speed would be terrible, kind of like what I had in France, I guess.
Yeah, my father-in-law lives in, the desert in Nevada, and he has satellite, and he pays like $250 a month for satellite internet. It's insane.
Right, but that's all you can do.
Yeah, but you know what they did? They just put 4G in his area. Now he has 4G access.
Oh, actually, that's it. Right. That's interesting too. And I've been surprised. I think we talked about this, AT&T, since the LTE stuff has come out. I've been really pleasantly surprised by how widespread that is. AT&T gets a lot of crap for supposedly having a really bad network. And certainly over the years of the iPhone, I've experienced that around the country. But since moving to Windows Phone, I've noticed, and more recently 4G and then LTE, through some combination of better devices and just the improvements, obviously, to the network. That stuff's gotten a lot better. And maybe that is the answer. Maybe it's a lot easier to put up the occasional cell phone repeater tower, or however they do that, I would imagine, than to actually go in and wire, with fiber optics. Or
yeah, the reality is we are never going to see this day where everybody has Fios and everybody has this crazy internet access. That's not going to happen because it's
too expensive.
It's way too expensive for these companies to wire up, these rural areas that have a very small population.
Yep.
But if you could come up with a way to get LTE access to these people, I think most people would be happy.
Yeah. No. And in fact, the LTE is so good. I had always resisted a tethering plan on my phone because I just felt like it was very expensive what you got. I don't use it all the time. I only need it when I'm traveling and all that. But when you move to LTE, all of a sudden tethering makes a lot of sense, sharing the internet connection among devices. An LTE connection is fantastic. And when you're on a laptop with LTE, I mean, it's as good as sitting out in my den and using the Wi-Fi network off the Fios. I mean, it's great.
Even for $60 a month, people are bringing up pricing, and I don't know what they were talking about, but let's say $60 a month for LTE for 4G access.
Compared to the $250 you were talking about,
compared to the $250, you know what? You're still going to be a little limited because you can't watch Hulu and Netflix and as much as you would like to, but you could do everything else.
Right.
And you're not being charged $250. If you want to spend that much money, you could get some higher package.
And it's sort of strange. It's like real internet, right? The problem with dial-up is that it's a state you're in, aside from the speed, obviously.
Even 3G. I mean, 3G is not real.
No, it's lousy, and LTE is the point where it becomes real. It's kind of like the 5 megabit, 1 down, 1 megabit up that's okay. That's broadband, right? That's fine. LTE is fine. I think sub LTE, it's not fine. And I think that's the line. And that's a real connection. I mean, I think that for most people, for what they really do, it is as good as traditional broadband. It's broadband. It's literally broadband.
It's exactly what it is. I want to continue, but we need to take a little break. And I want to do our Audible pick of the week early because we forget to do it every week. And this has happened almost every week that we've done this. So I don't know if you're ready to do it, Paul, but you have a great pick. And you have a pick of somebody that I've interviewed in the past.
Oh, yeah.
And that's Daniel Suarez. But before we go to the pick of the week, I want to say this portion of What the Tech is sponsored by Audible. You get a free audiobook. If you go to audiblepodcast.com/Andrew, we have a new Audible code this week, /Andrew.
Audiblepodcast.com.
Yes. audiblepodcast.com /Andrew. is a site to go, and you can sign up and you can get a free audiobook. You could download over 100,000 titles at Audible. They have a great selection of books, almost everything that you could imagine. We've done a lot of sci-fi picks in the past. We did a couple of World War II picks in the past. Yep. And this week, Paul's pick is which book do you have as your pick? Because I see 2 of them.
Well, actually, there's 3 of them.
3 of them.
So
okay.
Unfortunately, I actually used the 3rd one in Windows Weekly recently. But the deal is basically that Daniel Suarez has emerged as what I would call the new Michael Crichton. Right?
Yeah, I agree with you.
His books basically involve technology run amok, and the implications of that. His latest book is called Kill Decision. It's very timely. It's odd. If you go out and you buy a new car, you notice that those new cars are on the road everywhere. You notice them, And when I read this book, the interesting thing is that the basic topic here is about unmanned drones and how the military is increasingly relying on these things. And that what if these things could be used against us? And as I read this, and all of a sudden I see all these unmanned drone stories in the news.
Oh, did you hear about the blimp, the surveillance blip in New York?
No.
It was a giant blip, an unmanned blimp doing surveillance. It was like some sort of test that they were doing of the device.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, so this is obviously a big thing. And unmanned drones have been very successful and cost-effective for the military. But the problem is, they're also, unmanned drones are essentially a hobbyist thing. Like, you can go to a store and buy a remote control helicopter, and there's nothing to stop you from putting a camera on it and buzzing up to your neighbor's window and watching them get dressed or something. I mean, individuals could use these things in very nefarious ways. And so his latest book is about that kind of, not about the peeping Tom thing, but about the military aspect.
I think that'd be hysterical if it was.
That's a completely different kind of book.
Yeah.
But I will say this, his first 2 books, Demon and Freedom TM, are among the best books I've ever read.
I've read them both. I've read both.
Kill Decision's good, but the first 2 books are unbelievable. They're just unbelievable. And Demon is the type of book where you read it and it's heavy into technology. All of his books are.
And it's accurate, and that's the thing.
That's what sells it. If you know anything about this technology, you read this and you're like, wow, this guy really gets it. And that it helps sell it because, I've worked in banks, for example, and I know how bank vaults work and all that. And when I see a bank heist movie, a lot of the time it kind of takes me out of it because I know how these things really work and that's not possible. And, you read these books and you're like, wow. And then the book ends and you think, well, I'm never going to read a book as good as Demon again. And so Freedom comes out, and that's the sequel. The 3rd book has nothing to do with the first 2, but the first 2 are interconnected. So the second one comes out, and you're thinking, well, Demon was such a good book. There's no way the second one's going to be as good. And you know something? It's better, and it is like Demon times 10. He turns it up to such a notch where you cannot believe he's going here, and it's amazing. And so I would say they're all good, but the first 2 in particular are, like I said, among the best books I've ever read ever.
Have you met Daniel?
No, I've not.
I had a chance to interview him early on when I first started podcasting, and I wish I was able to do the interview now.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea what I was talking about at that point. But he was a great guy, and I thought it was a decent interview for the time being. But he has some amazing books. I actually have Demon and Freedom TM on audiobook, and I got them through Audible. Mm-hmm. And I just put Kill Decision in my queue so I could download it and listen to it. But this is the great thing about Audible. You could go there. I know a lot of people travel, their commute. They want to listen to something. And if you're into technology, like we are, I'm sure you are if you're watching the show, this is an amazing book. All these titles are great to get. Demon and Freedom TM, my 2 favorites. Kill Decision is the latest one from Daniel Suarez, and let me give a little sample of it. If I can remember how to click on things.
Billion people. Lazo offered the printed report again. According to geeks, you've got the closest tail, sir. Okay, I got it. Jordan grabbed the printout and clicked on one of the 3 LCD monitors on his desk.
By the way, the narrator's phenomenal.
GCCS, the global command and control system that tracked the real-time location of all friendly forces in the field. He scrolled the map view of his sector and noted the tail number of his Predator drone nearest the radar contact. He then clicked through...
The narrator that he uses, I think they've been the same on all 3 of them. Phenomenal, in my opinion. So that is our Audible pick of the week. Demon, Freedom TM, and the one I just played, Kill Decision by Daniel Suarez. You could, of course, get your free audiobook if you go to audiblepodcast.com/Andrew, because it's all about me. Thanks, Audible, for supporting What the Tech. To kind of move on to something else other than Peeping Toms. You know what? It actually brings a whole new light to the title Kill Decision, if that was the premise of the book.
So, by the way, the premise of the book is that supposedly there's always a human being in the chain of deciding whether to make the kill, right?
Yeah.
In other words, like, we found bin Laden, do we make the kill? And then a human says yes, and it does it. And this is really about taking humans out of the equation by using sort of a swarm mentality thing with regards to how insects work as sort of a superorganism. Very, very interesting. And that's what I meant when I said it was like a Crichton book, where there's science behind it and it's real. And he has references at the end where you can go find out more about this stuff. And Crichton was always like that. I mean, I think that was the one thing that the Crichton's books were always well written and fast moving and very movie like, but were based in science, and it made them real. You know,
Yeah.
and that's you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think he's, and I hope he continues, with these unbelievable novels. But he will most probably, if it continues, become one of these legendary, sci-fi thriller writers.
Yeah, I don't know what to call him. He's sort of like a cyber thriller, but that's
what I've
really
heard. I've heard techno thriller. That's what I've heard him described as. His books are techno thrillers.
It's almost like a science thriller. It's Crichton-esque. I don't know what to call it, but I know I like it.
Yeah, I love it too. He does some great stuff. Onto something that I did like, and we've discussed a few times on the show. We've always discussed what's going to happen with the Xbox. And when we talk about the future of the Xbox and this mythical Xbox 720, one of the concepts that we've come up with is that it might be all cloud-based, much like the service OnLive.
Hopefully not much like.
Hopefully not much. It's service. Yeah. Well, this is why. OnLive has hit the restart button. They're filing bankruptcy, and they've sold to some guy, some venture group.
Let me tell you something. This is what happened at Commodore.
Yeah,
this company's not coming back.
No,
I don't know if this was hard when this was happening. I don't remember exactly. I think I was coming home that day, or it was just home, or whatever it was. But the story behind this is very interesting because the employees were all called in for like some kind of an all hands meeting.
They had no idea.
Well, most of them assumed they were bought by maybe Microsoft.
That's exactly. You know what? When we started the story, it actually happened while we were doing Tech News Weekly. We were doing it live on Friday.
That was Friday. Okay,
Friday.
That was the day I flew home. Yep.
And we're doing the story, and I'm getting messages. OnLive sold. OnLive sold to an unnamed company, and I said it's Microsoft. 100%, it's Microsoft, and now they have the backbone to this cloud-based gaming service that they're going to offer with.
You're going to store your games in SkyDrive. You can totally see it.
Nope.
No, not even close.
Turns out
these guys were running on vapors for like 6 months. I feel bad about this in the same way that I feel bad about Commodore, actually, and about other things that seemed like they might have been good ideas. 3DO, Palm, BOS kind of falls into this category where the exceptional technology. They did something that others thought they could not do. Right. I remember when the very notion of this kind of a service came up, that you're not going to download the thing to your computer or device. You're not going to put a disk in it. You're going to play it over your bandwidth, over your connection. You could play it on this little thing that's like the size of a deck of cards, or you could play it on an iPad maybe, or on your PC through the web, whatever. It sounded ludicrous. And then they came out and they did it, and I remember when these guys launched about a year and a half ago, I thought this could be potentially a huge thing.
But do you remember when it was launching, how many times it was delayed, and it was going to be this this phantomware?
Oh, nobody thought it was
going to happen.
That was what was amazing about it, because they did it, and like you probably, I tried the service. I found it was a little laggy, it was, and I never bought one of the devices. I tried it through the PC. But I thought, it was there enough where I thought, like, this is doable. Like, this is something that could work. And I've sort of remained in touch in the sense that I get their newsletters and I've been kind of paying attention to what's there, trying to see what games they have, and just kind of keeping up on it. And I feel like I'm sort of invested in this, and I don't mean that in a financial way, but just because like the sucker that I am, like the patron saint of doomed technologies that I am, I really kind of fell in love with this notion of OnLive, even though I wasn't really a user of it, And I feel bad about what's happened here. I feel like this deserves to make it.
Yeah, and they're going to be dead, and it sucks because the concept that they had was great, and they just signed a deal with Google TV, and they're on Google TV, and I believe they were on some other services as well.
Sure.
But I think it's the fact that a lot of people don't have confidence in a service like this.
I know.
And it might take someone like Microsoft to do it first so other companies could survive.
Microsoft doesn't have to do it. That's the problem. That Microsoft, I think we could give Steam credit for, I don't know, creating the first legitimate, broad, general online service for games. Microsoft did Xbox Live, and today, of course, there's these gaming services are everywhere. iOS has one. Everyone does. Android has gaming services. These things are just a part of these platforms. And if you look at the way the Xbox is today, you can get indie games on Xbox Live. They have Xbox Live Arcade. These are small downloads. They're inexpensive games, usually $10 or less.
They're fun little games. Yeah, it's the equivalent of what you get on an iPad.
Well, and it's the same sort of frictionless buying experience. You don't have to. You do have to download it, but they're usually very quick. And I don't think maybe in a future of perfect bandwidth, a version of the iPad where you're playing these games live over the internet makes sense. But I think for today, for the foreseeable future, the way it is now is fine. It works. I think that's the problem. It just wasn't enough of a differentiator.
Do you remember a console called the Phantom?
What called the Phantom?
A console.
No.
It was this thing called the Phantom was canceled and reinvented 1,000 times. And it was supposed to be this video game console that did on-demand gaming via the internet in 2004.
Okay.
And it became vaporware after a while, but there was this company based in New Jersey, and I remember reading about this thing, and it was going to possibly allow you to play your PC games on it. So you could take a CD and put it in there. It was going to play it. And the thing just never happened, and their big release was a keyboard. They released the keyboard.
Like a gaming keyboard?
Like a gaming keyboard, yeah.
Oh, funny.
I have a picture here of it. Let me see if I can pull this up on the screen. It was a big deal. It was a huge deal for a lot of people. That's what it was.
We're always looking for this, holy grail of video gaming. Like Neo Geo was a big deal for a while, and there was also what was that mobile gaming platform that was going to be the biggest thing in the world that kind of imploded before it even happened. Also began with an N, I believe.
The Nokia thing? Nokia had one. Do you remember that?
It wasn't Nokia, but I don't remember. But there's always this kind of thing. I mean, I think that the future of gaming in many ways is stuff that people who really play games don't care about. It's like the casual games. But, as far as hardcore gaming, like real video gaming or whatever you want to call it, I mean, obviously there are going to be next-gen consoles from all the big players. There are going to be next-gen handheld consoles from all the big players. Windows 8 is going to be a big deal, mostly in the casual game space. But that's pretty much enough, isn't it? I mean, most people are going to play games on their iPads and smartphones, and I don't know. The stuff that we all drool over is stuff that most people just don't care about,
But do you think this is dead now? Do you think this concept of playing, on the cloud has kind of taken a back seat at this point because this company was not able to do it?
Honestly, I just think it's a feature of something else. The problem was they built their whole service around this. What they should have done was sold the technology to Sony or Microsoft or whatever. And by the way, I bet they probably tried. I bet that was their first play, was like, we've done this. Here's the proof of concept. Even when the service went live, I had this feeling like this exists only to prove that it's possible. Microsoft will buy them or Sony will buy them.
And apparently it worked really well from people that I know that used it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it failed.
Right.
I think it worked. It worked really well. They had that other service where you had this cloud-based computing thing.
I know.
Where you would log in, and I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, but don't think they got a lot of money from that. I think that's the problem, you know. And when I look at the, you know, you go to their website now and you're looking at the games they have, and the games that they're kind of pushing are in many ways the same games they've had for a while. You know, Arkham Asylum, Lego Batman. It's like the same stuff. Like it's like they're just not a first tier. You know, this is not where you're going to go to get the very latest game for the most part. You know, I mean, there's a couple of exceptions.
I'm on their website right now.
Yeah, you know, they have Darkness 2 is in there.
Yeah, it's a new game. I mean, they had a couple things here and there, but
yeah.
I don't know. If you're a gamer, I mean, you're a serious gamer if you're playing, you know, Darkness 2. You're not a casual gamer.
I don't think anyone is playing Darkness 2 on the Surface. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. You know? If you're gonna play that game, you're gonna go and buy it. I don't think that concept of playing it on the cloud actually, still exists for you.
The playing it on the cloud is almost doesn't matter, right? I mean, to the average gamer, I think the point is, who cares where it is? I mean, as long as it works, right? The notion that you could sort of rent a game for X number of months, I actually think is a very good one, because most people will play a game for some limited amount of time, right? I mean, I personally buy some Call of Duty game and I play it for the next year, but most people will buy whatever the game is, play through the single player, play online for a little while, and they're kind of done with it. And if you were paying $5 or $6 a month for that game, I mean, how many months would you play it? 2, 3? I mean, it's a lot less expensive than actually purchasing a disc, you know, and then using that. Assuming that could work out, you know, I think for most games that would be cheaper for most people, and including for me. You know, the one exception might be the Call of Duty stuff. But
you think they're going to go away within the year?
Yeah, I look at I was going to write a news article about this, and it was a little too convoluted and for me depressing, but also I sort of feel like the people who read my stuff don't really give a shit about this thing. Like, I mean, this is one of those things like I personally care about, but I just don't. Yeah, this does not end well. It's too bad. And it's worse, you know, what you learn through all this is like the situation at this company was worse than we would have imagined, you know?
Oh, it has to be. I mean, if it was so abrupt, it had to be awful for them. Yeah. But I mean, something like this could have been definitely used for mobile gaming. And maybe they looked at it in the wrong way. Maybe it should have concentrated on mobile gaming. They should have concentrated on the iPad and on, you know, these lower end devices that you don't mind playing a game that doesn't look amazing.
You know what probably sunk them was they had to pay for all those Windows 7 licenses so they could.
Can you imagine? That would be the best story. That'd be the best story if that was a nail in the coffin.
$199 a piece. Like they basically everyone who downloaded their app, they had to buy a copy of Windows to serve those guys. You know?
And they left.
Yeah, and
they played it for a month, and that was it.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, oh yeah, this is the Windows desktop on my iPad. Well, that's nice. Let me go play Croco Dino Wars or whatever.
So before the show, we were talking about false rumors that have been coming out about Microsoft over the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
And we were talking about last week was that breaking news that you shot down the rumors that it was going to be $199 for the Surface, which was ridiculous. By the way, we got picked up by a couple of websites.
Okay.
That you said that on the show, so that was great for us because we got a.
Okay.
So, Paul, please say some more things on the show.
Yeah, say something else provocative.
Yeah. And this week, I believe this morning, there were some rumors coming out about pricing for Windows 8 Pro.
Yeah.
And those were false as well.
Well, those I just don't know. My point to you was simply that Microsoft has not announced this, so I don't feel like this is something we could discuss. I've not heard this.
Yeah. And my whole thing is, you know, this might be a good thing for Microsoft because Apple gets all this coverage. Yeah. And 60% of the coverage that they get is redundant rumors about the same thing over and over again. And maybe it'll be, oh, you know, we realize that the glass is using, you know, this technology and not that technology.
Apple is or is not moving to an 8-pin, no wait, 9-pin, no wait.
10-pin. Yeah, so it's the same exact story 15 times, even down to screws. Last week, they were going crazy over some rumor that it completely made up, and it had no. And the only reason why people believed it is because they thought this is something Apple would do.
Do you watch? Do you watch or are you aware of the show The Newsroom on HBO?
Yeah, actually, one of our viewers, his sister, is on the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So my wife and I watch this show. I think the way to put it is it is probably the most liberal biased TV show that's ever been created.
Sure.
And so I love it. No, but I have a lot of problems with it. It's really well made. It's really well written. The people who are on it, the characters who are on it rather, are too intelligent and too ready with exactly the right quip. And it's too perfect of a world that doesn't really exist. And it's like this fantasy world where the people who work in news care about news, and they talk about news, and they debate news, and they always make the right decision, and they do the right thing, and they want to deliver the truth to the American public. And this does not exist in real life. This is not what news is like. And this stuff that you're talking about with the screw that wasn't real, or the is it or isn't it real price for Windows 8, this is the kind of BS blogosphere world that we live in today, where anyone with a website can publish anything they want, and it's true or it's not true. No one has any idea, but no one is going to get, 2 confirmed reports before they can go out and say that this is real. They just someone the
source is some guy on the assembly line in China. That's a source.
Oh, well, not one. But it wasn't. So the source on one of the things that you just brought up was an anonymous poster to the forums of the website that wrote the story. That was the source. That is not a source. It's not a source. And it's not a reason to write an article. And, listen, we all make mistakes. We've all done things we wish we could do over. We've all been lazy. We're not always the good people that we hope we are. But, the goal should always be to do better and to help people and all that kind of stuff. And I look, sometimes I mail it in like anyone else, but as far as I can tell, the entire internet is just mailing it in all the time, and it's getting really depressing. And it's like nobody cares, and because ultimately it's about page views and we got it first, and I recoil from that kind of thing. I used to be part of that problem, and now I've decided that I don't care about that anymore.
No, yeah, but I do think you're right, and. It seems like journalism, to an extent, has died on the internet because nobody's responsible for what they say and what they do.
Actually, it's funny. You had asked a question earlier that I only partially addressed, but you were talking about 19 million Americans that don't have broadband. I think you can make a compelling case that access to the internet, which is access to information, is quickly becoming a right of an American. That the reason you need that is because you need to know what's going on, that you as a voter or just as a citizen of the United States of America in this case can't make an educated decision about the things that you may be voting for or that other people are going to be voting for, or that other people will be deciding who you're voting for without access to that information, and that the internet is part of that thing, and there's a guy I work with, Mark Manassi.
But it wasn't always like that, Paul. It wasn't always like that.
I don't know. Maybe it was always like this. Maybe it's just something I'm waking up to now. But we could. I'm quoting somebody here, so I don't mean to take credit for this witty phrase. But as Mark Manassi says, we can use our powers for good, or we can use them for evil. And a lot of what I try to do on my own website is investigate things. Here's Windows 8. What's the new stuff? I try to help people. Outlook.com comes out. Here's 2 weeks of tips that I can write. It's not about the breaking news stuff, because a lot of the breaking news stuff is baloney. It's crap. It's slice and time nothing. It's a screw that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's a price that may or may not be real. It's a lot of like flag waving and hand waving and look at me. And I'm kind of tired of it. I'm really tired of it.
But I feel like most of the time, the blogs that are publishing these, they know that there's a good chance it's not real.
Of course they know, but they don't care.
They don't care because you know what? It's SEO, and they're going to get the ranking is going to go up, and it's going to get click. Right, it's link baiting to every extent of the phrase.
Yeah. Now, anytime you take like the high road like this, someone can point to something you've done and say, "See, you're a hypocrite," and yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, we all do it. I mean, listen, I've done it a lot of times with my titles. I'm not saying I don't do it.
I'm not running for Jesus here, as Homer Simpson once said. It's just, I don't know. So the thing I would say about the Windows 8 pricing stuff is there's a couple things we do know, and there's some things I'd like to know. For example, Microsoft made an announcement previously about 2 upgrade programs that they're going to have. You as the purchaser of a Windows 7 based PC between some date and some date can upgrade to Windows 8 Pro for $14.99. That's a tremendous deal. One of the things I may do on Thursday when I go to this Microsoft store is buy a new computer, buy a Windows 7 computer, so I can qualify for this upgrade and do that and write about that, because I think that's something that people are going to want to know about. The other thing you can do, though, is not yet, but starting on October 26th, is anyone can buy for a limited time a $39.99 upgrade to Windows 8 Pro, and they can put that on any computer they want. That's a tremendous deal.
That is.
So is it possible that sometime in the future after this deal expires that the price is going to go up on Windows 8? Probably. I would assume that Microsoft will announce that at whatever time. And what I'm really hoping, what I'm secretly hoping, and what I think a lot of people are hoping, is that they wise up to the fact that this pricing is the correct pricing. Now, that this is what the price should be.
Before I forget, I got an email because we were talking about the pricing a little bit last week, and I got an email from a kid. I mean, I don't know if he's a kid or not, but he said he's in college, and he gets his student discount. How is it going to reflect on the student discount? Because currently it's $29.99 for a copy of Windows 7.
Yeah, I don't know.
Have they even alluded that there's going to be a discount, or they might just say, hell with it, it's $39 now?
Right, they could do that. I think there'll always be educational pricing, so maybe it'll be half that or something, but they just haven't announced that. One of the little tidbits we found out this week, because on Monday they announced that you can now do the registration for this PC upgrade deal, is that the website that you'll eventually go through to make this happen is the same website you'll use to buy the $40 upgrade. And that because you've done it as a PC buyer, at some point the price will go down from $39.99 to $14.99. And so it's the same website. And you could almost imagine them having different deals to different people. Sign in with an EDU email address, and maybe you get a lower price at some point. We'll see. I mean, that stuff we don't know. But I look at this like 3 years ago, Windows 7 came out. They had this family pack. It was Windows 7 Home Premium. It was the upgrade version, not the full version. It was $149.99, and everyone thought this was the greatest deal in the world, which it was.
Yeah, it was 150 divided by how many copies? You could do 4 times.
Three times.
3 times, okay.
This time, you're getting the Pro version, not the Home version. You're getting it from Microsoft. Well, actually, you would with that family pack as well. You can buy as many copies as you want. If you only need 2, you only buy 2, and it's less expensive.
Yeah.
This is just it's such a no-brainer. And yet, the other flip side to this news thing that we're kind of talking about, the bloggers and all that, the other part of the equation, of course, is the people who read this stuff and the way that they react to it, And it amazes me. I was just talking to Raphael today, the guy that I write the books with, that, you could write a how-to article. I wrote something today about overcoming the limitations in libraries in Windows 8 if you want to access media from these new Metro-style apps, whatever. It's an issue that's very important to some people. It's an issue that is completely uninteresting to most people. I think that would be the easiest way to say it. But people are very passionate about it. And so I think most of the people who respond to this, either on Twitter or via email, will either be thankful that I wrote it and thank me. Oh, I was looking for that information. Good for you. Thank you for doing that. They may have further follow-up questions, which I've asked for explicitly, and that's fine. But every once in a while, you run into the jerk. The guy who says, and I feel like we just talked about this too. I apologize for repeating myself. But
please repeat yourself.
He says, I get this email from someone who says, yeah, that's great, but it doesn't help my problem. How come the media, sorry, I'm forgetting it. The music app doesn't play FLAC files? I don't know. I don't know why. Sorry. It's like, I feel like this climate we have online of stupidity, it's a circle of stupidity, involves people who write stuff online that is stupid, that is not sourced or credited or whatever, and then is read by people who kind of feed off of this same kind of stupidity. And it's like, this is a different question, but I don't understand why you're attacking me for not addressing FLAC in my issue about using libraries in Windows 8,
Well, it also comes down to this. I think we've become a society where we think everything caters to us personally. Yeah, so the second that, you'll be like, oh, and this is why I always, when we're always talking, I talk about the average consumer not liking something.
Yeah.
And I say that all the time. And one time somebody asked me, well, why do you say that? I'm like, because we are not the target audience.
Yeah.
You know who the target audience is? The mom that uses Microsoft, Paint
I know.
To take to edit a photo. I mean, that's who the people are that are using these devices. So when you turn around and people are like, well, I think Windows RT is too simplistic, and I think the iPad is too simplistic.
It's not for you.
Why do you think the iPad has been so successful? Not because of us, because someone that knows nothing about photo editing could go there, download a Photoshop app for free, and edit the photo. Add whatever the hell they want to add to it. That's why it's successful. So if you talk about the future of computing, you have to take us out of the equation and put them in there and say, you know what? Now it makes sense. Now Metro makes sense. Who knows?
It may make sense, but
we become this group of people that thinks everything is for us. We're talking about doing a Hackintosh,
and plus react so violently to something you don't completely understand. There's the other thing. I feel like Americans especially, but it's not just limited to Americans. Certainly, it's like we're entitled to have opinions about stuff we don't understand, but really strong opinion, not just an opinion, but like a violent opinion. And I have a friend like this. Is a very smart guy, but he's almost like a contradiction machine. You could say something like, the sky is blue, and it's like the sky's not blue, it's gray. No, I'm looking at it right now, it's blue. But then he backs himself into this corner where he can't walk away from this assertion he made, no matter how ridiculous it is. And I wish there was I wish it was nicer.
Yeah. Well, here's a great example. Someone in chat goes, tablets are purely a consumption device. Well, what do you think every computer and desktop and laptop is for many people? They're consumption devices. Not everybody's doing photo editing or even using Word on a regular basis. You know what they do? They go on Yahoo News. They look at celebrity gossip. They go to Facebook, maybe Twitter, and they check their email, and they look at a cat picture on Reddit. That's exactly what every computer is used for.
Wow. That's probably sadly accurate, but it's funny though, because these things evolve. I mean, in the old days, you used to have to pay for computer time. You'd log on via some remote terminal and do that. I mean, these little microcomputers, as we called them in the early 1980s, were considered too toy-like to be serious computers. They weren't considered real. And now the kind of 10th generation of these things is considered too complex. And so now we're moving to tablets and simpler devices, phones. You could everyone is freaking out because Windows 8 has combined a mobile OS and the desktop OS. And how dare they attach this thing to this beloved desktop OS that I use all the time. I hate them for doing that. But on the flip side, you have something like Apple, who has seen great success with their iPhone, of course, and with the iPad. And they're pushing all their resources into that. And of course, it makes sense that you would make these things both more powerful and more complex. And so this thing that used to be purely a consumption device is evolving, of course, to adopt some productivity stuff. There was a story that the reason Steve Jobs pushed for the iWork apps on the iPad 2 is because he didn't like that criticism, because it was very real that the original iPad was purely a consumption device. But the dark side of doing that is that those apps and those systems all become more complex as a result. But you don't hear a lot of people complaining about that on the Apple side for some reason. When Microsoft attaches productivity and consumption in one system, it's the apocalypse.
Yeah.
But when Apple's working to evolve that to that exact same point with the iPad, oh yeah, no, they're innovative. They're world class over there. But I mean, it's really the same thing. They're just going about it in different ways. But this little fishbowl we live in, this is the stuff that people, they feel so strongly about it.
Listen, I want the start menu. I want the start button.
Why?
I was not ready for this separation. I was not ready.
I mean, of all the innocuous things in Windows, like to complain about this one thing. I mean, I have a good friend of mine who was complaining about the desktop, and I finally wrote him back and I said, I don't understand this complaint. You're complaining about this incessantly. The desktop in Windows 8 is a superset of what's in Windows 7. It is everything important about the desktop from Windows 7 with more stuff. So explain to me what's lacking here exactly. And it all involves, the transition back to Metro. No, we're not talking about Metro. You're just going to use the desktop. You got a big computer with a big screen. Never going to use Metro. Please explain to me what's wrong with it. And you really can't, because it's more of an emotional thing than it is a logical thing. And it's also, frankly, and not to be a jerk about it, but a lack of experience thing. I've been using Windows 8 as my primary computer for more than that, 11, 12 months. I don't know. Long time.
I wasn't ready for this breakup, Paul. I thought I might have had another year or two with the start menu, but now it's gone.
Well, by the way,
I feel empty inside.
You could absolutely have another year or two, but you'd have to use Windows 7.
Oh, so maybe I'll stick with Windows 7. No, it comes down to a couple things. In my opinion, I believe Windows RT will be extremely successful.
I wonder,
I don't. If they're going to be a serious competitor to the iPad, I think it's a lot prettier. It's going to have to. There's going to be a couple of factors that play a huge part in this, and that one is marketing of it. How are you going to sell it? How are you going to distinguish that this is not Windows, but a Windows RT? There's going to be a lot of those things that come into play. But if you have an iPad, without knowing what an iPad is, you have the iPad and you have Windows RT. In my opinion, the UI is far prettier on Windows RT. I think it just looks a lot better.
Okay.
And if I'm going to go based on that, I'm going to go with Windows RT.
A lot of this stuff, though, is kind of picayune. People don't adopt Windows 7 or Windows 8 because of the start button, or the lack of it. I mean, the iPad is whatever it is. I mean, Google and its partners make tablets too. They're actually pretty good, by the way. They've not sold in appreciable numbers for some reason. By the way, this is completely off topic, but I find it very interesting that Apple owns about 65% of the tablet market, and Google owns about 65% of the smartphone market, right? Even though they're competing in both markets with essentially the same products. So why is iOS better suited to a tablet, and Android is better suited to a smartphone?
Well, I don't know if that's true. I don't know that Android is better suited for
actually, I don't mean it. I don't mean literally, but I mean that's how that's sold.
That's how it's sold. Yeah,
you could make the distinction. You make the conclusion that there must be something about these systems where, for whatever reason, Android makes more sense on a phone
than it does on a tablet.
The Apple stuff makes more sense. And my theory about that, by the way, is that Apple has the much better ecosystem for content that is movies, TV shows, and things like that. And that's the type of thing that people, they sit down with an iPad, they want to watch a movie on that. Nobody really wants to. I mean, it's nice that you can watch a movie on an iPhone or an Android phone, but nobody really wants to watch a movie on that thing, right? I mean, if you could choose, you would pick a bigger device for a movie. But that's the type of thing that works out well,
I think there's room for both. I'm a fan of Apple and I'm a fan of OS 10, and I think they've done a great job with it. But I think there's a place for Windows as well. I think there's a place for both.
Yeah,
you don't need both anymore. This crazy concept that it's one or the other is ridiculous to me.
I think that I've seen nothing to dissuade me from the notion that the future of this market, this general computing market, can consist of some combination of Android, iOS, and Windows.
But not Linux, according to you.
Well, Linux is Android.
Yeah.
No, not Linux. Not Linux as we know it.
Like Red Hat 6.
No. Gen 2, maybe.
I'm telling you, Paul, you're going to see a lot of these guys. You're going to see a lot of these Windows guys throw their arms up in the air and start screaming about how they're going to Linux. I'm telling you. You're going to have this group of people, the people that are so devastated by this, and they hate Apple for whatever reason. They don't even know why they hate Apple. They're not going to go there. They're going to go to Linux.
There is all right, so what you just said is completely irrational, but there is a there is a segment of the population out there, and I it's important that people understand this, because I think people view me as some kind of weird anti-Apple thing, I think that hating Apple because they're Apple is as ridiculous as any other stupid thing that someone could do. I mean, I think people should always go for the technology in this case, because that's what we talk about, that's best for them, period, whatever that might be, One of the things I can tell you is that because my son is deaf and needs captioning, is that when I look for ecosystems that have movies and TV shows that are captioned, it's pretty much Apple and then everyone else, right? That may change in the future, but today, if this kid wants to rent a movie on a device and watch it on a plane, he's going to do that on iOS. It's not because there aren't captions available on Android, because there are some, but they're really hard to find, because actually you have to go to the website to figure out which ones have caption. It's not in the app on the device, which is stupid. And then on the Microsoft side, there's basically none, although that's hopefully going to change. So that's just a fact. I'm not going to, bite my nose to spite my face, that kind of thing. I mean, I think people make This is the emotional decision thing. It's not a rational decision. It's just I hate Apple. You know why? I can't stand those guys. Those hipster San Francisco scumbags.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever that means. I mean, it's just. But you hear that a lot, and the irrational part of what you said is that they're going to go to Linux. I think there's probably going to be a bigger group of people that run Windows Server as a workstation than will ever run Linux as a desktop OS. I mean, that's.
And I'm also really fascinated on what the life expectancy of Windows 7 will be now. Because people hung on to Windows XP, and they really had no reason to hang on to Windows XP. Other than they don't want change, and they were terrified to go to, they didn't go to Vista because Vista was bloated. Fine, I could understand that. You had older hardware, but why didn't you go to 7?
So I actually do think Windows 7 conceptually is kind of the next XP because it will be around for a long time. But I actually don't think it will be as long as XP. Because one of the interesting things that's changed since XP is that Microsoft has done a much better job of letting you go from version to version in an elegant fashion. Upgrading from XP to anything else is a disaster, right? Yeah. And actually, if you think about it, there really have only been 2 operating system versions since XP, right? Vista and then 7.
And Vista was not this, oh my God, this is the worst thing in the world. I think they got a lot of negative press. But they fixed all the problems by the time that
they did, but no one was going to upgrade to Vista, so it almost doesn't matter. So I'd have to go back and look because it's been so long I can't tell, but I would guess off the top of my head that there are not incredible, but there are in place upgrade capabilities from XP to Vista. There would have to be, right? Not so much for Windows 7. I actually don't remember either, but Windows 8 is gone. But once you get to Windows 7, I think they're going to change the way that they upgrade Windows 8 going forward for a while. And I think you could look 5 or 6 years down the road, and there's going to be a fairly seamless transition that someone could make from Windows 7 to whatever that version is. And I think that's the big difference, that whether you're a business or an individual, the act of upgrading was always a horrific mess, whether you're deploying desktops to like multiple seats in an enterprise or whether you're just doing it on your own PC. I was just talking to Raphael again about this. I'm writing a series of Install Fest articles. I actually have at least 2 more to write before Windows 8 ships. I've installed Windows 8 on more PCs than I care to count. In fact, I don't want to ruin the surprise because some of these are really cool computers that I think are going to surprise people.
Oh, wow.
But every range of computer you can possibly imagine, really old computers.
How have you, just without giving away a lot, how have you seen, what do you think about the experience on an older computer compared to a newer one with Windows 8?
All right, so it ranges. I mean, I would say, assuming your computer can handle the resolution, right? Which I think it's a reasonable thing to say. 1366 by 768 is probably the minimum for like the Metro experience and all that kind of stuff. It's fantastic, but I mean, even on it's funny, like on a netbook, if you accept the fact that I'm not going to run Metro apps in a netbook, right? I think there's a case to be made still that even on a netbook, that Windows 8 is a better experience than Windows 7 was.
Interesting. Okay.
And especially, not that anyone should be running a netbook in 2012 running with Windows 8 on it, but with the prices so low, it's almost a way that you could eke out a little more time on it, and that's one of those decisions you might have to make, financially, whether this makes sense. And I think there's a case to be made there. It's very interesting, but I think the real use case for Windows 8 is going to be like Core 2 Duo or higher for one thing. I think that's but I have a couple of Atom-based machines. And I think the results are going to surprise people. That to me has been very interesting. But the more pressing point, the point I was trying to make was just that, I have a computer. It's a desktop computer, whatever. It's a laptop. It's getting slow. Something's wrong. Drivers, blah, blah, whatever it is. I test a lot of software. I want to blow this thing away. And so you go through this kind of process where you back stuff up, you reinstall things. It's like a whole day affair. Like you do it off to the side while you're getting work done on a different computer. It takes a long time. Windows 8, that has gone down dramatically. It's not all Windows 8, but a lot of it is Windows 8.
Sure.
And some of it is just SkyDrive. All my documents are in SkyDrive now. I don't have to back that stuff up.
It's all there. Yeah.
I just put the SkyDrive app on, I sync it, it's good to go. The number of apps that I have to install, much smaller than it used to be. The whole kind of, from 0 to 1 getting up and running thing is like a couple hours, at most.
No, the install process is simple. I've had a difficult time, and I'm running the machine that I put Windows 8 on. It's it's a dual core Intel. Not the greatest hardware. You know, it was probably a $400 laptop, so it doesn't have the greatest trackpad. It doesn't have the greatest keyboard. Doesn't have an amazing display, and it wasn't that great for me.
Okay.
I didn't have this oh wow factor. Before I make a judgment of the operating system, obviously I'm going to wait till I get a new machine, which I am when it comes out in October. I'll probably get one of the new Lenovo's because I always felt that the keyboard and the trackpad on those devices were phenomenal.
Superior. Yeah.
And I'll run it on that. And that's when I'll say, you know, I like it or I don't like it. I feel a lot of people make an assumption on an operating system or a device before they've had a month or so with it.
You need, but the thing is, Windows 8 is very interesting because even on a desktop computer, the desktop experience to me is great. It's better than Windows 7. I love it. It gets interesting on the tablets and the hybrid devices and all that. And I don't have a lot of that stuff, but I have a tablet. I try to spend time with it, even though it's it's kind of a prototype. It's not an ideal computer, like a real computer, but you could bring it out, watch TV, you could play Minesweeper or whatever, and kind of see how it works. And it's not horrible. But I think what's going to be really interesting to people down the road is the recovery stuff that happens from here on out. There are going to be people who install Windows 8 in a very traditional way, like we've always installed Windows. But when it comes down the road to the point in time where for some reason you want to blow it away and start over from scratch, that stuff becomes so much better than it was before. There are going to be millions and millions of people that have, well, most people, of course, buy computers and Windows 8 is on there and they kind of step through the final bit of setup. They're never going to run Windows 8 setup ever. They may reset their computer and they may have a handful of apps they have to reinstall, Adobe Photoshop or Microsoft Office or whatever. But most of that other stuff, it's just going to be part of the process. It's going to save all your stuff, your settings, your data, your Metro style apps. All that stuff is going to come back. And that's you talked about Windows RT going to be a big success. I mean, that's Windows RT. That everything that runs on Windows RT will come back.
Yeah, I'm really excited for October. Because I want to get my hands on both, and I'm probably going to get a new laptop, and I'll definitely get, an RT tablet.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. Paul, before we wrap it up, let's play a new game.
Okay. All right.
It's no, I'm not going to go there. I was going to say I'll show you mine, you show me yours. That's not the new game here on the show. We've been doing a 10-year game, and last week we said we're going to do what ifs also, because there's a lot of what ifs with technology. And one of the what ifs that was presented to me was, what if the iPhone never came out?
Right.
Where would mobile computing be? It also, I guess this also has to do with what if the iPad never came out? Because if the iPhone never came out, the iPad would have never come out either.
Yeah.
So what would have happened in 2007 if the iPhone was never released? Apple just never entered into that market. They never intended on entering into that market. The two major phones are, three, BlackBerry. But as far as a smartphone, it was the Trio, and it was a Pocket PC, I believe. It was Windows Mobile 6.0.
Yeah. You need to, there's another level to this because it's not enough that the iPhone came out. The iPhone itself would have been moderately successful. It would have triggered actually maybe a revolution, I guess would be the right way to say it, in the mobile space, much like the Mac did in the PC space. But it would have followed that trajectory where it would have been kind of a slow boil thing. The thing that really put the iPhone over the top wasn't the iPhone. It was a year later when they did the App Store.
Yeah.
It was obvious to everyone but Apple that we needed to put apps on this thing, And it was the formalization of an App Store as a key part of that ecosystem that skyrocketed that thing, If the iPhone had just come, I think, you could almost take it one step back. If the iPhone had come out, but the App Store had never happened,
it would not have the success that it has.
The iPhone wouldn't have, because other people would have done it. Because people would have copied the iPhone like they did anyway, but they would have said, but everyone's clamoring for an App Store, so we have an App Store. I
remember early on with Palm, there was some weird App Store that they had.
Palm did.
I can't remember what the name was, but it was this App Store where you had to put in your credit card information to buy it, but it was done, it wasn't automated. And I think that's the thing that really made it successful. This automated, no thought process behind it. You click, you buy.
Well, Apple was advantageously had already had iTunes in the iTunes Store by that point, and had figured it out. That Remember, Apple. It's funny. Apple gets all this credit, and maybe rightfully so in some cases, of course. But one of the things that Apple licensed very early on, they did not create on their own, but they licensed one-click ordering from Amazon. Remember, they made this big announcement about that. So by the time the App Store happens, they have this years of experience delivering music first, and then TV shows and movies, and all the improvements that came along with that kind of stuff, and all the other content types they have. And then they could just kind of apply this to the App Store. And they create this seamless, kind of frictionless environment for buying apps and getting them on the device. That stuff was huge. So it's kind of hard to say because this stuff all factors into each other. I mean, I have to think that someone would have looked at iTunes and said, maybe we should do this for apps, for mobile apps or whatever. I mean, the mobile app stuff was awful. The way that stuff used to work. Remember, there's like sites like Handango.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
$29.95 for like a
spreadsheet app.
Spreadsheet app. Yeah, that's
compatible with anything.
I think we're talking about the same spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's terrible, right?
But do you feel that Windows Mobile?
No, Windows Mobile was not going to be it.
It definitely wasn't going to be it. But they had this idea where it was almost Apple-fied. You had the icons there. It was almost there.
Yeah, but it wasn't there. I mean, first of all, this whole thing would have been stagnant. It would have moved very slowly. The thing that Apple did, and Chris, I'm thinking of this as we talk. I mean, Apple introduced a kind of excitement and a consumer flair to this stuff that used to be like a business tool.
It was also separated. Desktop and mobile were totally two separate things, and now they've kind of merged because of Apple did.
The way that people would acquire these phones in the past, unless you were like a technology enthusiast, is your work would buy it for you because you needed it for secure email when you were on the road or whatever. And, you would access whatever lame, kind of apps they might have had. And that was kind of the end of it. But Apple offered this whole ecosystem thing, right? But remember that the big part of it was an iPod as well. It had an iPod app that would, play your music and play videos and whatever else the iPod does. They kind of had all the pieces. I mean, I think it was the full meal deal. I mean, Microsoft would have just continued with the tool that it was. It was just a kind of a thing aimed at business users. It solved that case. It looked a little bit like Windows, and we have kind of a pocket version of Outlook on here, and you can get your email. And that would have just kind of continued. It would have been awful. I mean, I don't think they ever would have done a good job with that.
It took them so long to realize that you can't take Windows and shrink it down.
Well, now they're taking Windows, whatever they call it, Metro, and shrinking it up.
Yeah, shrinking it up, yeah.
To the desktop.
Do you think there would have been the success? Who would have been? Palm would have definitely still been around.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. No one can say. I mean, obviously, what would have happened.
Would Android have existed?
No. Actually, so Android would have existed probably, but it would have been nothing like it. It would have been like a BlackBerry type system.
Yeah.
With a keyboard,
that might have been the future. You might have gone to, this BlackBerry type UI for everything.
It's
because if you look at those videos, you remember those videos that Microsoft had about the future of mobile?
Yeah.
And they're showing this weird BlackBerry-like device running Windows 7 on there and Windows XP on there. And, they're doing this like conferencing, but it's all backwards. Like if you look at it, it's such an archaic way of doing it. That probably would have been true. You would have had this way of doing things, and it would have been like having a mini computer in your hand. And it just would have been a lot of redundancy.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I mean, Apple obviously had good ideas because they're such a popular company with individuals. There's an excitement around this stuff that kind of drives. It's a full circle kind of a thing. Android, of course, was going to be just like the iPhone. Windows Mobile, because it was not like the iPhone, had to go away, and they had to start over from scratch. Palm probably would have evolved Palm OS in some different direction, and
if I had a time machine, I would love to see that. This is world where Apple didn't do it. Didn't come up with the iPhone.
I think it would be pretty horrible. I mean, and this is something maybe for those people who blindly hate Apple. I think it's important to point out that you can try to explain it away and say, look, a lot of this stuff happened despite what they were doing.
Yeah, listen, in 10 years, they may not be the dominant phone.
Who?
Apple.
Arguably they're right. So they're not the dominant phone platform. I mean, the iPhone itself outsells any individual Android handset, but does not outsell Android. I mean, so I don't know. We talked about this a little last week. I think, I'm coming around a little bit to Android. I'm starting to kind of get it. I think as the apps on that system improve, and the operating system too, it becomes less loathsome to me than it used to be. Did I tell you the weird Android experience I had in France, by the way?
No, but I'll tell you the awful Android experience I had today.
Okay.
You go ahead first.
And
then we'll end the show on this happy note.
Okay, so I brought the Google Nexus 7 tablet with me. I rented some movies before I left, and I figured I'd watch them on the way out or the way back, And while I was there, I connected it to the Wi-Fi, and it connected to the French version of the Play Store, which doesn't have some of the content. Like, they don't have magazines there. They don't have, I think they don't have the books. I don't remember exactly, but they only had some stuff. But if you went into the movie store, the Play Movies or whatever, there was like French movies. And so they're what they called version français. It's like the VF thing, meaning most of the movies were like French dubbed movies, and really lousy. So like I couldn't rent anything new coming home. I had enough on there; it was fine. But later on in the trip, I brought out the Nexus phone that I had, and I turned that on. That connected to the U.S. version of the services, and the thing that's interesting is I was able to download a movie I'd purchased from the Play Store onto the phone, which I did watch on the way home. And actually, I should recommend this to everybody, including you. If you haven't seen this, there's a movie. It's on iTunes and probably the Microsoft stuff too. I believe it's called Indie Games, and it is. I should probably look that up rather than guessing what it's called. But it's a movie about the creation of 3 different video games that actually on the Xbox 360, and it's about how they did it and the troubles they had doing it, and it's a fascinating. It's called Indie Game, the movie. Excellent.
Oh, it's a new movie.
Yeah, it's excellent. And the games that they talk about, I've actually bought all these since I've been home. Is not Limbo, the Meat. It's like Super Meat Boy, Braid, and Fez are the 3 games that they discuss. It is a fascinating movie. And all these guys go through horrible and very good times eventually. They all, I think, become very successful, but very, very, very interesting.
I'm probably going to watch this tonight.
I couldn't watch it in France.
Well, we always talk about, the drawbacks of Android. And, yeah, they've saturated the market, but I don't think they're the dominant operating system in mobile. I still feel that the iPhone is the OS.
Okay.
For anybody that wants to get into this. I mean, yeah, Windows Phone is phenomenal. I actually think Windows Phone is better than Android.
Yeah.
And iPhone is, in my opinion, by default, they win because it's the ease of use and the go-to operating system when it comes to mobile. The reason why...
It's a safe choice.
It's a very safe choice, and it's a great choice.
Yep.
But the reason why...
I didn't mean that as in a denigrating way.
No. The reason why I feel that Android is nowhere near at the level of the iPhone is because applications still are awful on there. I'll download the same game on the iPad and on the Nexus, and it looks 1,000 times better on the iPad. Why? Why is it like that? Because what they're doing most of the time for Android is they're just scaling them up.
Right.
On top of that, I spent 2 hours playing the stupid game on my Nexus. Spent 2 hours. Tower defense. I'm at the last stage on the hardest level. You know what happens? System crash. Game just totally shut down.
The application is experiencing a problem.
Yeah, the application is experiencing a whatever problem. I forgot what they call it. And that was it. And I said, I can't do this anymore. And I had to start the show. But very disappointing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's there's a worse fate for the mobile industry than Android winning. Android is getting there. I agree that there are problems. The software update stuff is a problem, but it could be worse. But healthier still, though, than any of these things winning, I think, is at least 3 of them succeeding to a point where they make sense, where the ecosystems are good enough, and that the way you buy a device is to pick the device you want, because you don't have to worry about the other stuff. The movies and TV shows there if you want them. The apps are there if you want them. I think a lot of people buy an iPhone today because, well, that is where the apps are. That's where the stuff is or whatever.
Yeah.
A lot of people buy Android because maybe they're less expensive. Maybe there's more of them and they like that kind of choice, whatever. But, I mean, hopefully it kind of comes down to not having to worry about that stuff. The other stuff that you can just, you pick the device you want.
Sure.
It doesn't matter.
With that said, Paul, time to wrap it up.
Okay.
Go to our website, guysfromqueens.com or gfknetwork.com. You can check out Paul's site, winsupersite.com. You can also watch Paul every Thursday on Windows Weekly on twit.tv. You can follow Paul on Twitter at Thurrott. I am at Andrew Zarian on Twitter. Follow me. I don't have much to say. But it's good. When I say something, it's worth it. Most of the time, it's at 1 o'clock in the morning when I drank a fifth of scotch. So
right. Let me get on Twitter.
Yeah, I do that a lot, and I start drunk tweeting really angry comments about what I'm watching on TV. It's quite enjoyable. If you miss any portion of this show, you could go to our website, gfknetwork.com, and catch it archived within 24 hours. It's up there, or Win Super Site. Also, subscribe to us. We're on iTunes. We're on Zune. We're pretty much everywhere podcasts are available. And that's it for this week, guys. Thank you to Audible for sponsoring this show. You can go to audiblepodcast.com/Andrew and sign up for a free audiobook. I encourage all of you to do that. Paul, thanks again. I appreciate it. I appreciate you showing up again.
Just show up. I can show up.
See you guys next week on What to Talk. Good night, everybody.